Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hero 28 is already poking their head around the minds of content creators, and it's no secret to anyone that we'll be getting another hero in the quite near future, probably in a month or at the latest by the middle of July. Last year we got Doomfist on the 6th of July, who was later released on the 27th. The year before, we got Ana, who released on the 21st of July, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was released on the PTR just a week before that. Take it from someone who spent hours writing this script and doing my Hero 28 research. It isn't a walk in the park to dig up information on the next hero in Overwatch. This time around, we'll be covering the more speculative things surrounding the next hero, since we've gotten almost no information on who or what the abilities are of Hero 28. So I'll also be comparing what I was guessing last time to what we actually got as a hero. So I was guessing that we'd be getting another tank hero, because we already had Moira as a healer just previously. What we got was both a healer and a tank combined. Not only that, but a healer with a barrier, which was another thing I was predicting, considering most team comps have a barrier tank in some form, whether it's Reinhardt style barrier or it's a Winston bubble. In my opinion, and from what I've observed, that's really the most important thing to have in any team comp. Now, Brigitte has become sort of a problem, and so far Blizzard hasn't done a whole lot to fix this issue that's been going on for at least a month now. Of course, a small patch did change a couple things about her, but overall the problem remains. This video, however, isn't about Brigitte or how the meta is hardly playable without her on your team. This video is about Hero 28, so let's think of what kind of character is the most effective at countering Brigitte, and if there's some sort of way we can implement some new mechanics, allowing some sort of equilibrium with the concept of a new hero to counter her. Now, let's keep in mind that by no means will adding a counter to Brigitte actually fix the meta, only the Brigitte problem, and so we'll still have to see changes to Brigitte as time goes on, but first of all, there has to be something to create a damaging effect on her. So, with any good hero number whatever video, we have to start with the character, design, and lore, before we get into any of the gameplay aspects of the character itself. So, as for the character, we've been over this a lot in past videos, specifically speaking of heroes from the lore, and some minor to major characters in the comics and other plotlines that haven't been added into the game. I was going to make another video on the list of characters and why they could potentially be heroes at some point at a later date in the future, but really we're just going to go through all of them right now. Let's just go down the list of the ones I researched through the comics. So there's this guy from Reinhardt's comic who's sort of a bit of a leader in the gang. He doesn't really have a name, but then again, no one really noticed that Moira was in Doomfist's comic, and then she was a hero, even though she had like no dialogue in that comic at all. Then there's also this guy from Junkrat and Roadhog's comic that seems like he could have some sort of role in the story, considering how he goes about paying to have the factory destroyed discreetly. The only unfortunate thing is that he's assumed to be sorta dead by the end of his comic, so that might be a bit of an issue lore-wise. Next up in Symmetra's comic, we have the opportunity to revisit someone I thought would have had a release role already, Sanjay. This character is Symmetra's boss affiliated with Vishkar, so he already has an affiliation in the lore, has an outline of character traits and personality through the comic, and honestly, is one of the most promising candidates for a new hero out of everyone. From Torbjorn's comic is an old colleague of his that worked on creating a giant weaponized Omnic. His design is really unique, and in that way I kind of like it. It could also be really fitting for a future hero, huh, Blizzard? Another character is Maximilian from Doomfist's comic, or really just anyone who's sitting at Talon's round table in the comic. The last person from the comics is an Omnic by the name of Lynx 17 in Zarya's comic. And those are all just characters from the comics, not to mention the animated shorts and all the teasers or small map details we get about characters like Hammond, the chimpanzee everyone was really hyped about a while back, who still wasn't released, and we really haven't heard literally anything about him for a while. There's also this theory that Dr. Winston from the lunar colony, who's assumed dead, could also become a hero. You can check that out yourself, it's some pretty interesting stuff. So for this new hero, I'd say that the best chances are for getting Sanjay and Maximilian for the upcoming few heroes. Why? Because along with Moira, they're the other two characters that are in closer zoomed shots in Doomfist's Masquerade comic. Now, I've already talked about these characters in the past, and so we'll still revisit them, but for a lot more detail into it, check out those videos. They'll both be in the description, but on the top right will also be the video I made on Maximilian a while back. So, For their big roles in the lore and actually important dialogue / doing something that's not redundant or for plot convenience, they are the prime candidates. For simplicity's sake though, let's focus on Maximilian's character since I focused on Sanjay's last time. So, Maximilian is one of the higher ups in Talon and has somewhat of an important role in the comic. He's well acquainted with Doomfist as we can tell from his interactions, and from his role we can see that he's some sort of a supportive character. Well, not to say that he's a support hero, I just mean he doesn't get himself involved in conflict or battles if he doesn't have to. And for this reason, we also have no idea really what kind of abilities he could have. However, speculation is really what this video is all about, so let's get down into it. Maximilian as a hero doesn't have much in terms of what's available for us to speculate. He's more of a thinking and judging character than a fighter, which leads me to believe that he wouldn't ever be a tank. Unfortunately, most things point towards him being a support. His character, his role in Talon, and even the way he talks don't seem fitting for either a DPS or a tank. But for the sake of getting a break from the new supports, let's just say that he isn't one since I already did a video on if he was one. Let's say he's a DPS, what kind of abilities would he have? To counter the Brigitte and the barrier comp, abilities that go through barriers are really our only option. The best I can think of would be something similar to Winston's Tesla cannon, which has a low damage profile. The only reason why that works is because Winston has a lot of HP, and is really easy to target with healing, especially by Ana, so he can do a lot of damage to the back line. The problem with a squishy hero having such low DPS and close combat is that he'd be completely useless and die pretty fast. And that's where we get into the mildly overpowered if done anyway except for the one way that no one knows is the right way until it's not broken kind of speculation. And by that I mean, let's just give him projectiles that go through barriers, kind of like Symmetra's current right click, but obviously a little bit faster and maybe deal a little bit less damage. Maybe he can rapid fire, which, when combined and allowed to come in like waves at the enemies on point, would deal a fair amount of damage, but his capability to fight alone is just a little bit harder than the other heroes. Another thing is that I really like the concept of playing around with status effects and other weird passives, so I'm just sort of thinking maybe he can have a way of countering Brigitte's stun, or maybe to apply sturdy or some kind of effect like that to a teammate, which, now that I think about it, kind of makes him seem like a support hero. I don't know. There are endless possibilities with what you can do with new characters, especially ones with so little development that you could just throw on whatever you like to see if it sticks. Well, I suppose we'll just have to wait for the leaks or for the release on the PTR before we get to knowing who will be the next Overwatch hero. Of course, I'm just as excited as you are, and I'm looking forward to getting some gameplay of the new hero right when they come out, so don't forget to come back and visit when that happens. And finally, I want to know what you think about the next hero. Will it be Maximilian, will it be Sanjay, or will it be an entirely different character? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Also, are you hoping for a tank, a healer, or a DPS? I'd also like to know what your opinions are and what you're hoping for. If you liked today's video, don't forget to drop a like as it's hugely appreciated and helps grow the channel. On the flip side, if you disagree with me, leaving a dislike is just fine as well. Either way, you obviously enjoy Overwatch as you clicked on this video for whatever reason, so why not just subscribe, as I love Overwatch too, and these videos are made weekly. Also, make sure to turn notifications on with a click of a bell so you can leave that first comment that you've always wanted to. This is Card signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day.